Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you're having a great start to your Monday. A rare Monday recording of the Hammer Territory Podcast. But hey, plenty of news going on and another Braves win. A pretty nice one to start off, well, as this series against the Tigers. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Stephen Tolbert. Stephen, how are you, sir?
What's up, Shawn? Yeah, man, we're doing a Monday night show this week. We both had some stuff come up for tomorrow, so we're going to go ahead and get the show done for this week. Good win tonight. We're going to talk about it, of course, but we've said it in the past, it's always much more fun to do these after a win. It wasn't looking great, especially when, Max Fried left the game. Jesse Chavez came in with some heroics, and then some other guys did too that we're going to talk about. But yeah, always good to do these after a win, and always good to do these with you, buddy.
Absolutely. And yes, the feeling is more than mutual. Of course, you can find the Hammer Territory Podcast across all forms of social media. Myself at Stats SAC on X, Stephen at B_outliers, and of course at Foul Territory across all forms of social media. Hammer Territory, a part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Well, Stephen, let's get right into it. You mentioned it. Max Fried was Max Fried. He was absolutely wonderful, through the first 5 innings, ran into a bit of trouble in the fifth, and then he gave way to Jesse Chavez, who later on gave way to Daysbel Hernandez, and the bullpen was able to kind of work through some things when it came to, keeping the Tigers offense at bay. But what stood out tonight was two things. Number one, for the first, 7 innings, it was the Braves offense 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Austin Riley continued to have good at bats, but overall, it looked like it was going to be one of those nights again where the Braves clearly were, had the best approach, but they weren't getting the job done. But then it was some unexpected names: Jesse Chavez, Daysbel Hernandez, Forrest Wall. First time in a while he's been in the lineup. He gets the RBI single to tie the game. And then, of course, a well-known name, Ozzie Albies, is able to get the job done with the home run, but Joe Jimenez gets the save. It was a night where the Braves came through when they needed to, but it was several unexpected sources that came through, which is a really, really awesome thing to see. Kind of another indication better times may be ahead.
Yeah, listen, it sometimes it feels like a little bit of found money, right? Anytime, you're the best, the biggest contributions come from Forrest Wall and Daysbel Hernandez and Jesse Chavez. Um, you know, it's almost like playing with house money a little bit because you just don't expect it. You don't expect those guys to be parts of wins. Obviously, none of it works unless you only give up one run. So first and foremost, it's about Max Fried. It's about the job Jesse Chavez did in that, I think it was the sixth inning or the seventh inning, where he came in and struck 3 guys out. I mean, if you give up 3 or 4 runs in that game, you lose. So it starts with the pitching. You can do a lot of good stuff, and a lot of guys can be heroes for you when you only give up 1 run, because there's just more opportunities to do so. When you give up 4 or 5 runs, you need a lot more heroes. So yeah, it starts with the pitching. Obviously, Max, it got rough there at the end, and he definitely wasn't his sharpest tonight, but still plenty good enough. And then the job the bullpen did. I am interested to see. Snit said post game. I was just listening to the post game press conference. He said there were some guys down, and Pierce Johnson was not used tonight, and he's only pitched once in 4 days. So I am a little curious to see if maybe there's something up with him. That would be weird if he was down for workload reasons. Just with that light of a workload, only pitching once in 4 days. So that's something to watch maybe into tomorrow and the next day is to make sure he's good. Anytime you don't see one of your best relievers in a close game where they're pretty well rested, my eyebrow kind of raises a little bit. Just I guess an injury bug radar kind of goes off. So we'll see. Hopefully there's nothing there, and hopefully it's just a rest day for him. But yeah, Jesse did a great job. Daysbel did a great job. I said it on Twitter. I don't love using, your lower end relievers in those situations. A tied game in the 8th inning against the top of the order. Certainly much rather your higher leverage guys do it. But credit to those guys. They came through, and it helped, obviously it helped win the game. And then obviously Joe Jimenez came in with a terrific ninth inning to close it out.
For sure. And the great thing about it was that again, it kind of, as you mentioned, some things going on, the Braves trying to work themselves through some things. But what stands out is that the trust and the depth, right? I agree with you. Probably not the best decision. Probably, out of 10 times, the guys that we use tonight, they're probably not going to get it done, several times out of 10. But the point that I'm getting at is they got it done tonight. And so that was a big development. And given, other guys like Marcell Iglesias, Pierce Johnson, another night. So whenever you go see the Braves, whether it's home, it's on the road, you may get a good pitching performance. Hopefully you're going to see some good offensive performances. But the thing I can tell you is no matter what you like to see, the place for you to go to be able to get your Braves tickets is SeatGeek. And not only for Braves games, concerts, festivals, what have you, over 28 million downloads, over 70,000 events. SeatGeek is your top choice in many different ways. And the great thing about it is that it's MLB's top place to go to get tickets. And the great thing is that it's going to let you know how good the tickets are. A rating scale of 1 to 10. Green means good, red means not so good. And from that, you're going to be able to know that you've made the right decision. But we've got you taken care of here with SeatGeek being a new sponsor with Hammer Territory and the Foul Territory family of podcasts. If you use the promo code HAMMER, you'll get $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. And that's $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. So, Stephen, obviously the offense has gotten going, and one of the big reasons for the offense going is the one consistent source that we've seen so far this season, and that, of course, is Marcell Ozuna. Kind of a quiet night tonight, but Ozuna really got things going for us back on Thursday and Friday. And, of course, we've seen some big developments from another major player in the MVP race when it comes to Mookie Betts. Of course, Mookie Betts on Sunday hit by a pitch. It wound up fracturing his left hand. He's likely going to be out for 2 months. So that definitely is something that plays into the MVP race. I know that it is June. So talking about the MVP may not necessarily be that, smart of a thing right now. But what stands out to me, Stephen, is that when you talk about, we also saw the All-Star selections come out. Marcell Ozuna is the one Brave who's up there in the top 2 of voting. But when you see, injuries that have occurred to Acuna, injuries now that have occurred to Mookie Betts, it really seems like that you could make a case that 1 and 2 in that MVP conversation in the National League is Shohei Ohtani and Marcell Ozuna. And I think that is more than a compliment to how consistent Ozuna has been this year.
Yeah, listen, I mean, Marcell has a legitimate case as an all-star. He's got a legitimate case as MVP. I hate injuries. I hate injuries so much. I hate that, the league is not going to get to watch Ronald this year. I hate that the league is going to be without Mookie. We've got some big stars, especially on the pitching side. Even now, position player wise that are out, and injuries just suck. And they're, it's the worst part of the game. I don't care who you root for. I hated. I was annoyed when Bryce Harper got hurt. Like, I don't like injuries at all. I want the best players on the field. It's just a better product. So yeah, the fact that Mookie's going to be out sucks. I was actually watching that game when he got hit, and it looked bad. It was very clear immediately that something very, bad happened. He's not going to need surgery, which is good. But yeah, Marcell, I mean, he's got a legitimate MVP case right now. I mean, not just like, this is a Braves podcast, so we talk about Braves players, like just an objective, legitimate MVP case. He's got an outside shot at the Triple Crown. I mean, as crazy as that is, I mean, he's even got the batting average for it right now. I don't know if that's going to continue, but he's definitely got All-Star. Obviously he's definitely got every right to be in the All-Star conversation. If you're in the MVP conversation, you should probably be in the All-Star conversation. But he's been incredible. He still hasn't slowed down. I don't know how. I mean, he's stayed hot. April, May, June, hasn't slowed down one bit. Other guys have joined him, so it's not as obvious that he stayed hot, but he's just as hot as he was at the beginning of the year. I talked about this with Bowman when Mark Bowman came on the show a few weeks ago, but he's been hot for like 13, 14 months now. Like it's been crazy. He hasn't had a bad month since last April. And we're in, that was April 2023, and this is June 2024. So he's been incredible. I there's a part of my brain that says there's no way he can hit like this all year, but he's hit like this for over a full calendar year at this point. So like there's nothing. I mean, he very well could. Like this could just be Marcell in 2024. And that's crazy to say, but he's been the best hitter on the team by a mile. If it wasn't for Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez, he'd probably be the best player on the team. So yeah, it's been incredible. I hate it for Mookie that he's going to be out, but Marcell is definitely in that conversation. He's earned every bit of it.
And if the Braves offense starts to come around a bit, Marcell can stay, where he's at, and this Braves team can start winning a bit more. Listen, I'll just be honest. If you're going to stack up, if Shohei Ohtani and Marcell Ozuna have similar numbers, I can see Ohtani being the winner. I just can. And we'll have plenty of time to discuss it. But the big key is that Marcell Ozuna. Again, as Steven mentioned, it's not just us saying, well, hey, look at what he's done for us despite all our injuries. It's the fact that he legitimately, has a case to be the best hitter, at least in the National League so far this season. But Steven, we also talked about it the last time we discussed how the lineup can get going. And that is its best bats getting going. And the Braves truly, even without Ronald Acuna Jr., with Marcell Ozuna now performing how he is, you've legitimately got the potential to have 3 MVP bats. Olson, Ozuna, and Austin Riley. And that's exactly what we're seeing from Austin Riley. The last time we talked, we discussed that for the Braves to be able to win that series against the Rays, it was going to have to be them hitting home runs and hopefully Riley being a good source of it. 3 straight games, 3 home runs, 2 more doubles tonight. And I bring this up because I want to stress a point. I want to make something very, very clear because I think that it is an awesome development and there's no better time for this to happen. Austin Riley, what we're seeing from him right now, it's sustainable. I'm not saying he's going to sit here and hit a home run every game, but Austin Riley, it may seem to some that when he went from how he was in May to where he's been over the past 4 games, him hitting that instant switch, some may be skeptical of how long he can continue it. But Riley heating up this specific time of the year, history shows it happens nearly every single year. He has a 980 OPS in the month of July for his career. And Steven, in 21, 22, and 23, from the middle of June through July 31st, in each of those 3 years, he had an 880 OPS or better and 10 plus home runs over that 6-week stretch. So the point that I'm getting at is that Austin Riley, again, I'm not saying he's going to hit a home run every game, but being one of the best bats in baseball from mid-June through the end of July, he's done it every single season over the past 3 years. We're starting to see it once again.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Like there is no replacement for your best hitters being your best hitters. Like there's no lineup construction. There's no, moving things around that can replace just your best hitters hitting the way they're supposed to hit. And, last time you and I talked, we talked about like the Braves need Austin Riley. There's no version of the Braves winning in 2024, especially without Ronald, where Austin Riley is not a part of it. Because, the talent level on this team has just decreased so much. I mean, they don't have Acuna, they don't have Strider. You could argue their 2 best players, most talented players overall, are gone for the season. And, just the overall talent level of the team is just decreased to the point where you no longer have the luxury of one of your best players not playing well. You need everybody. You need all hands on deck. You need your best players hitting like your best players. You need your role players performing well in spots. You need everybody. And credit to Austin, man. He has been unbelievable the last 4 games. His WRC plus coming into the Tampa series was 77 for the season. That was coming into the Tampa series. 4 games later, 3 against Tampa and 1 tonight against Detroit. He's raised his WRC plus to 102. So he's added 25 points of his WRC plus to his line in 4 games, which is pretty incredible for this late in the year. I mean, he's 250 plus plate appearances into the year. And that just shows you how hot he's been the last 4 games. But it's got to keep going. Like the Braves need him all the way through the summer. They need him into September. They need him October. Him, Olson, Ozuna, even Ozzie. Ozzie had the big home run tonight. Especially hitting left-handed. Ozzie's really struggled left-handed this year. He was in a big funk, in part because they faced so many righties over the last 4 games. And when he does that, he gets in a funk. But so to see him launch that ball, to the chop house, batting left-handed was huge. And the Rays need those 4 guys. They need Sean Murphy. They need Adam Duvall. Jared Kelnick has been tremendous the last month or so. If he wants to continue to do that, that would help a lot too. But yeah, I mean, at the start of the year, the Braves had enough depth in the lineup where they didn't need everybody to be, up to their level. Now the Braves need everybody to be up their level. Without Acuna, without Harris, without Strider, like the talent level on the team is just decreased to the point where now you need everybody to hit at their level, pitch to their level. Like, the margin of error is gone. So Austin coming alive these last 4 games has been, just a welcome sight. And hopefully it's just a sign of things to come for the rest of the summer.
Absolutely, because if we can get Austin Riley going, hopefully Matt Olson can stay like he is, and obviously Ozuna getting going. That's good enough to carry the offense. You want to see those 3 guys do what they can, and that can make the offense above average and close to elite. But the other big reason why we've got to get those 3 bats going is because now you mentioned it at the first of your discussion about Austin Riley. It's nearly impossible to replace losing some of the talents that the Braves have. And unfortunately, over the weekend, we found out, of course, that Michael Harris II has a grade 2 hamstring strain, will probably be out, I would say, at least a month plus, maybe longer than that. We know Ronald Acuna Jr. is out. The point that I'm getting at is that right now, this Braves outfield is Jared Kelnick, who, to his credit, is playing excellent baseball. But beyond him, you've got Adam Duvall, Ramon Laureano, Brian Anderson, and Forrest Wall, who played a good job tonight. It's going to be good to see. I think the defense can be okay with that group. But the thing that stands out is you've got a lot of offensive limitations. And Steven, we talk about the fact that it's so huge for our big hitters to get going. The thing is, though, is that even if they do get going, somebody really needs to step up beside Kelnick out of this group to do that offensively. But it's really hard to trust any of those names that I mentioned outside of Kelnick to do that. I don't want to say the outfield is in a dire situation, but it's pretty close right now with the names that we have to use.
Oh no, I mean that's a rough that's a rough outfield situation for a team trying to win a World Series. I mean, it just is. I mean, if we're being honest, Jared Kelnick was supposed to be the third or fourth outfielder on the team, probably more closer to the fourth outfielder on the team coming into the season. And right now he is clearly like far and away the best outfielder on the team. And I'm not knocking Jared Kelnick, but like, he's not an established guy where you're just comfortable with him being the best outfielder on your team. Adam Duvall is looked more and more like a 35-year-old. Ramon Laureano has had a rough couple of years where he just got cut by Cleveland, who's always desperate for offense. And he couldn't make it on that club. Forrest Wall is a 26, 27-year-old kind of career minor leaguer. Brian Anderson's been cut a bunch and was just a free agent, until the Braves picked him up a couple of weeks ago. It's it's rough. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's rough. And if Adam Duvall wanted to kind of flip a switch and really turn back into Adam Duvall, that would be tremendously helpful. He's been that guy against lefties, but you know, you see so many more right-handed pitchers and over the course of a season that it's tough to just hit lefties. And especially it's tough when the Braves don't currently have a decent platoon partner because Kelnick is having to play every day. So it is rough. I'm very interested to see what Alex does. We're in the middle of June now. It's probably 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks away from being, in the heart of trade season. You could still see trades this time of year. There are some teams that are bad enough where they're probably okay with waving the white flag and sending some guys away. But it is harder because there's nothing forcing those teams to make a deal with you. They can say, I don't really like that offer. I'm just going to wait to see if I get anything better at the trade deadline. When there's nothing forcing the other team's hand in terms of moving guys, then usually the only way to get a deal done is to overpay. And Alex might have to overpay. Scott and Brad talked about this. Like, you know, you're not always going to be in a situation where you can get the best deal or the exact deal that you want. Sometimes you do have to overpay a bit because the team needs help and the outfield needs help. Like, they've got 5 outfielders on the team right now. They've probably got like 1.5 major league players in that group. Um, Maybe 2 total if we're being, really kind with the splits and the platoon stuff. So yeah, they need help. They need probably at least 1 outfielder, maybe 2, quite honestly. They need some left-handed help. Getting somebody that can play against right-handers is a big deal. I would love to get like 2 legitimate left-handed outfielders so that, Laureano and Duvall don't have to play against right-handers. That would be tremendous. But I'm going to be very interested to see what Alex does. This is, other than shortstop, which is a really hard position to upgrade in season, the outfield is the clear area in terms of the position player group where you can upgrade. And I'm guessing Alex will at some point. It might be, it might take longer than all of us want, but I'm guessing that's where he's going to, go look for help. And I'm very, very interested to see what he comes up with.
Absolutely. And the thing is that Alex is very creative when it comes to his ways to come up with solutions that can certainly make his product better. Well, if you want to come up with a way to make your nutrition better on a daily basis, the best way is to go to a trusted source, and that would be AG1 supplement.
Eric Kratz here from FT. I'm a former athlete that really pays attention to his routine. And AG1 every morning before my workouts is something that gets my day going.
Hey, Braun here. AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support, and it's backed by multiple research studies so you can trust what you're putting in your body.
Unlike other products which only test their ingredients in isolation, AG1 tests their formula as a whole.
Ready for this stat? 97% of people in a research study felt more energy after 30 days of drinking AG1. If I had to recommend one product to support whole body health, it's AG1, and that's why FT is excited to have them as a new partner. Starting your journey with AG1 is a win. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/foul. That's drinkag1.com/FOUL. Go check it out, FT fam.
So, Stephen, you're going through, the outfield situation, and it was going to lead to my next question, but you kind of answered it. You talk about, where listening to Scott as well as, Brad, and, even if it's a bit early to, expect trades to happen, it's right in the time where you want to talk about, what really is the target for the Braves in these trades. And, obviously the outfield. And I think the lineup, getting lineup depth, trusted lineup depth, is probably right now more important than some may think. So many may think that another starter is the way for the Braves to go. But I'm there with you. I think that the outfield needs help, and I agree. I think yes, Orlando Arcia has played some decent defense this year. But this Braves offense without Ronald Acuna Jr., it just goes back to the same reason that you need your best hitters performing at their best as much as they can. For that same reason, you also don't have the luxury of consistently seeing everyday players give away at bats. So to me, I would think that, we're looking for outfielders. We may be looking for a shortstop. Well, what's the key trait of that player that we're looking for? For me, it's someone who can get on base. For me, it's someone who can work good at bats, who can deliver good approaches, productive approaches as consistently as possible to be able to put runners on base and create those run scoring opportunities. Is that a big trait that you're looking for in the type of position player that Alex should go after? Or is there anything else along with that you feel is important?
There's a whole debate, and there's been studies done on this about what's best to go get versus, on base percentage versus slugging percentage. Like, what's the best way to build a lineup? Is it better to have, half your guys be OBP guys and half your guys be slug guys? Is it better to go all 9 one or all 9 the other? There's tons and tons. I mean, there's been so many different studies and so much research done on this. You can Google it and go read it all. But, I don't focus as much on the style of player. I what I look for is just OPS in general, just a decent OPS against, either, right now what the Braves need is some decent OPS against right-handed pitching. Like, that's where the Braves are vulnerable right now, is because they're so right-handed in their lineup. I mean, Olson's left-handed, Kelnick's left-handed. Ozzie's a switch hitter, but he's much, much worse batting left-handed. Like, so you have two true left-handed hitters in your everyday lineup. Then you have Forrest Wall, who's, you know, a career minor leaguer essentially. So like the Braves need some left-handed help. That's why I was saying, you know, if you could go get one or two legitimate left-handed outfielders that could platoon with Duvall and Liriano, then you've covered up a lot of your weaknesses, in my opinion. I would definitely look at shortstop. Shortstop is very hard to get in season because most good teams or most bad teams don't have a good shortstop. And if they do, they're not going to trade him. Like shortstops are just hard to find. Like Paul DeJong of the White Sox is probably the only guy in terms of bad teams with a decent player at that position. You know, that's a possibility. I don't know if he's a decent defender. He's got like 14 or 15 home runs this year. He's much better than Orlando's been very bad. Like I tweeted this out. Even when you factor in his defense, like he's been the worst hitter in baseball for 2 months. Legitimately, I mean, literally the worst hitter in baseball. He's got a 36 WRC plus over the last 2 months, and nobody else is even below 50. So he's been the worst hitter in baseball. Even when you factor in his defense, he's a negative WAR player over that span. I would love to upgrade that position, but it's very hard to do in season. So position player wise, absolutely. I think two left-handed outfielders would be tremendous to get. But you know, a fifth starter, sixth starter would always help. I wrote about this at Battery Power last week, but it's very hard to trade for starting pitching. Now you could trade for like lower tier guys that you might think you can squeeze a little more value out of, and the Braves might do that just to get to October. But in terms of trading for guys that are actually going to pitch in October for you, those guys are extremely expensive and very, very hard to get. You should really never expect that. And then bullpen, I think Alex will always add to the bullpen. Every year he's done it every year, so I don't expect it to be any different this year. If I had to guess right now, the Braves will get one or two outfielders and one or two bullpen pieces, and that'll be their trade deadline. It just comes down to what the names are once we get to the end of July.
Absolutely. And the thing that stands out for a team with playoff aspirations, a team with championship aspirations, I can't remember the time frame that it was given, but last year Jeff Passan talked about it. I believe he mentioned that the team that, has the most homers in a playoff game wins that game nearly 85% of the time. So to your point, we could talk about getting on base all that we want to, and it's great if we can. But if the Braves could add another option and we know the Braves also have a good track record of bringing in players who will perform better, here than they did elsewhere. The 2021, the outfielders we got are the prime example. If the Braves can find another slugger that can play one of those outfield positions, that'll be a great addition. But some more notable news that came out on Monday, could potentially impact how the Braves may approach the trade deadline when it comes to adding a potential pitcher, especially for the starting rotation. As you mentioned, it costs quite a bit to go get a legitimate starting pitcher, but the Braves got some decent news on Monday. So Ian Anderson, who obviously has been out, for quite a while, I believe, since the start of last year. He obviously has come back from Tommy John surgery. He's been doing work to get back going. It was reported that he's going to start ramping up some activity, a workout scheduled, I believe, tomorrow, which is very good news, which should, put a plan in place here hopefully soon for him to, potentially get on a rehab assignment and start working his way back. Hurston Waldrop, who, there was, some stuff over the past 24 hours about him being put on the IL. The fact that there had been reports that he had some elbow soreness. The reports, and the latest tonight was that it was just inflammation. They're going to have him sit for a week, and then he'll get going on the start on a pitching program again. But Stephen, the reason I bring this up is you've got Ian Anderson, who's kind of, starting to get an idea of rehab and coming back. Hurston Waldrop, it looks like best case scenario, he should work his way up as well. AJ Smith-Shawver probably in the next month or so will be back and will be on a regular rotation, in the minors. The point that I'm getting at is that even though the Braves have dealt with their plenty of injuries when it comes to their minor league depth, pitching wise, they'll have some options that they can have for them to navigate the rest of the regular season. Number one, your thoughts on, the emergence of some of those young pitchers coming back in the next month or so, but how that depth can kind of give the Braves what they need to where they don't have to go out and get that significant starter.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just saying, starting pitching is so expensive at the trade deadline. You can go get fifth or sixth guys probably, but what are you going to get out of those guys is always the question. But like legitimate starting pitching is very, very expensive. And it's so much easier to use your own depth as your kind of, starting pitching reserve. And so what goes on down in the minor leagues in Gwinnett and in Mississippi is a big deal. It matters a lot for the major league team, even if you're not a big minor league, prospect guy, and I'm not. But that stuff matters a lot for the major league team. We've seen it the last few years. I mean, the Braves have dipped down and gotten some of their better prospects up very quickly. We saw it with Michael Harris. We saw it with Spencer Strider. We saw it with Vaughn Grissom. Like there is as aggressive a team as there is in all of baseball about promoting their prospects. I mean, we just saw it with Hurston Waldrop. I mean, he came up, he made like 2 starts in Gwinnett before he came up. Now, I don't know if that was the smartest move. A lot of people were questioning that move even before Hurston threw a pitch, and then obviously it didn't go very well. But they're hyper aggressive with prospects because they know that your own prospects are by far and away the easiest and cheapest way to acquire depth. So yeah, I mean, listen, it's a big deal what Ian Anderson does. I don't have a ton of hope, if I'm being honest. Like, he was very bad before he got hurt, and then he got hurt. So, he I don't know if people remember, but he got demoted to AAA. He was not pitching well in AAA. He got hurt in AAA, and then obviously had Tommy John, and he's been out for a long time. So I have no idea what to expect. If I had to guess, I would expect he would still be not very good, but who knows? We could see a different guy. It's really good news that Hurston's not seriously injured. Obviously, anytime you see elbow inflammation, you get a little worried. So the fact that it's just a week with him is good news. AJ Smith-Shawver should be coming back at some point. He's been out about a month with that oblique. It's usually about a 2-month thing, so he could be an option when you get to like September. And then, Schwellenbach has been obviously very good. He's still in the rotation. J.R. Ritchie is a guy that's in the minors that's starting a rehab. They've got a bunch of interesting guys.
David Fletcher, Stephen. David Fletcher and his knuckleball is
David Fletcher.
The talk of baseball, that knuckleball now.
Now, if we see David Fletcher in the majors, then some things have happened.
Worst case scenario.
I'll put it that way. If you see David Fletcher's knuckleball, with an Atlanta on his chest, then some stuff has happened. But yeah, I mean, listen, the minors, in terms of pitching depth, the minors is extremely important. It's the most important aspect of your team in terms of your farm system is how well you develop pitchers, because they're so expensive to acquire at the major league level. So that's the stuff I always look at when I'm looking at minor league ball. Obviously, you look at the position players. Nacho Alvarez has been bumped up to Gwinnett. He's done really well so far. Drake Baldwin has been bumped up to Gwinnett. He's done really well so far. As bad as Orlando Arcia has been, I don't know, maybe. I would not be stunned if Nacho came up at some point. Listen, as aggressive as the Braves are with prospects, I mean, they brought Vaughn Grissom up straight from AA. And Nacho's at AAA, so he's already ahead of where Grissom was when he got called up. So it would not stun me at all to see Nacho at some point. It would not stun me to see Drake Baldwin, maybe moved in a deal. Even Nacho, I don't know if they can afford to move Nacho as bad as Orlando is. But these guys doing well at the upper minors is a big deal, because at the very least, it's good. They're good trade chips. If you decide you want to go that route, it's better than not having any trade chips at all. So, but yeah, your minor leagues, the most important aspect of your minor leagues is how well you develop your own pitching depth, just because of how so expensive it is to go acquire it, in July.
Absolutely. And we're going to see that pitching depth on display tomorrow, because, the last time we were talking, Stephen, we were talking about Alex Anthopoulos' comments when it came to a 6-man rotation. Well, now with Hurston Waldrop be an option to AAA, Ray Kerr's been option to AAA, Waldrop having his injury, there's some pressure on Spencer Swellenbach. I don't want to add pressure to it, but Spencer Swellenbach, at the very least, a 5th starter. You hope he can stay the course for a while. Pretty big matchup between him and Casey Mize. This Tiger pitching staff, a lot like the Nationals, a very underrated pitching staff, very, very good starting pitching, option for the Tigers. But Spencer Swellenbach, he looked very impressive against the Orioles last week. If he could put together another start, I could see him potentially having that 5th starter spot in place through the end or through at least the All-Star break. So a needed start for him, especially with the fact that even though Ronaldo Lopez will be on the mound for the Braves on Wednesday, Tarek Skubal will be on the mound for the Tigers. So a big opportunity for Spencer Swellenbach tomorrow. Hopefully he can carry over some of the momentum that we saw with how well he pitched against the Orioles.
Yeah, you'd love to win the series tomorrow so that, you don't have to beat Skubal to win the series. People who don't know, maybe, he's not a household name just because he plays on the Tigers, but that dude is legit. I mean, he is nasty. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and you don't want to have to beat him to win the series. If you win the series tomorrow, then it's kind of a free roll. You can beat him for the sweep, or even if you lose the game, at least you won the series. So it'd be lovely to win the series straight out tomorrow with Schwellenbach. Like you said, he pitched really well against Baltimore. I mean, he faced Baltimore's full lineup. I mean, he Gunnar Henderson and everybody, and gave up, I think, 2 runs in 6 innings or something like that. So he's very interesting. He's certainly not a finished product, but of all the guys that have come up, maybe with the exception of AJ before he got hurt, Spencer's looked the most ready. And he's going to have a role in the team. I mean, I would not be surprised if Bryce Elder came up at some point and the Braves kind of went back to that 6-man rotation. I think you and I talked about this last time, but I think they have switched their thinking to valuing keeping their pitchers fresh and healthy versus having their best pitchers out there as often as possible, which I think is the right move. I think that's a very smart move. So I would not be surprised if they went back to the 6-man rotation and just used Bryce Elder or Alan Winans or somebody like that just to cover, for a chunk of the season until AJ's ready or one of the other guys is ready, but or Alex goes and gets somebody. But it will be interesting to see what they do. They have an off day on Thursday, so they can effectively still use a 6-man rotation even with only 5 starters because the off day can kind of serve as the 6th starter this week. So that does help, and it will be interesting to see what they do. My guess is Bryce Elder is going to come up at some point, but I mean, with Alex, you never know. I mean, every day we get a notification from the team account, we're just as surprised as anybody. So we'll see what they do. But they have very clearly shown an interest in keeping their starters healthy by giving them extra rest. So my guess is at some point we're going to see another starter come up and they'll go back to a 6-man rotation.
Absolutely. And the good thing about it is that, going back to that 6-man rotation, the thing is that approach, it's keeping one of the best starting staffs in baseball fresh. And that definitely is needed on nights where the offense has struggled, which has been more often than not. But you just have to hope that it continues and the Braves can get a win tomorrow. And we're going to continue to have you covered here on the Hammer Territory podcast. Brad and Scott will be back on Wednesday night. Then later this week, me and Steven will be back. Of course, we've, going to continue our conversations about the trade deadline. We got the draft coming up. And obviously, hopefully the Braves can continue to keep on winning. As Brian Snicker said earlier tonight, we're still focused on winning that East. We're not focused on winning the wild card. So wins that can be strung together will definitely help the Braves, especially with some tough competition coming up. But Steven, it's been a pleasure. I hope you have a great night, and we'll talk to you again later this week. All right, man?
Thank you, Shawn. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, good to talk as always. It's a big week. The Braves, they've got Detroit, and then I think do they go straight to the Yankees? I think they go straight.
Their off day, they travel, I believe, on Thursday. Then they got the weekend series against the Yankees, I believe.
Yeah. So in New York, and the Yankees are, if they're not the best team in baseball, they're one of the best teams in baseball. So that's going to be, it would be lovely to get some wins against Detroit before you have to go up to New York and face, Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and Stanton and all those guys. So, big couple of games coming up tomorrow and Wednesday, and then off to New York for the weekend.
Absolutely. And we'll have you covered throughout. And obviously, we'll also have you covered whenever big news does occur. Hopefully, more positive news than negative news moving forward. But until next time, Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at B_Outliers. My name's Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC on X. Of course, you can find at Hammer Territory across all forms of social media. Again, Scott and Brad will be with you again on Wednesday night. But until then, go Braves. This has been the Hammer Territory podcast, part of the Foul Territory Podcast and Networks. Go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.